like my soul is burning. Search high, low, still no peace for my soul.
I refuse to be a hypocrite. So this is the realest thing I ever wrote. Dear hurt people, I'm sorry I walked away when I thought I was walking by faith. My sight wasn't mature and neither was I. Do you feel my pain? Better yet, can you see my vision? Because if the world looks down on me, then somebody please tell me what am I missing? Tell me what am I doing wrong? I got nothing but time to listen. Because I know I'm the one that's got a blessing that's working in heaven's kitchen. You see, I'm becoming the man that I was destined to be. A worshiping man is what I want you to see. But if the world don't like it, then they free to leave because nobody be the reason God looks over me. A new year, a new me. I only walk with winners. But I'm not in a fraternity. I don't just step with them members. I respect the highest priests to the lowest of sinners because my relationship with God is what I want to remember. I wanted to fit in, so I walked a thin line. But fitting in with the world seems to be a waste of my time. I walked into the church, the Lord said it's about time. He gave me my blessings, now I have to help change lives. I'm moving my own pace, I'm running my own race. I fell a few times, but never short of my own faith. I hit the ground running, never standing in one place. The devil tried to hold me, keep them demons in my face. I come out swinging, my mindset is to live. But the devil wants us all, so we start with the kids. But then we say we pray for them, but something more got to give because our future is needed and we depend on them kids. So how can you blame them? Take a look at ourselves now. If we was given the top, never the right to look down, only he can judge. And our job is just the will of men. But I'm trying to find a difference from my enemies and my friends. I asked for guidance, then I prayed for inner strength. I thought I walked alone till I seen more footprints, and then I heard, well, you ain't got to struggle, young man, because what I have in store is worth so much more. Now, I'm a believer. I put it in God's hands. There's no more drama now. I'm following God's plans. My faith is stronger. My path is clearer. I seen the change in me, new man in the mirror. I say goodbye old days and hello good times. My God is the bright light, but he wants us to all shine. He wants us to all live. He's giving us all signs. The truth is in your Bible. Searching you will find. The power of praying, the joy of being blessed. Your past experience will prepare you for what's next. Your life was written before you took your first breath. God willing, sky gets the limit, but some only reach the ceiling, but we're going to pray for them.
Woo. Virtual claps. I hear them. I hear them. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much to our moderator, Minister Monica Jackson. We really appreciate you this morning. Your spirit and your joy is just infectious. So thank you so much. I also want to thank Healing Communities for the opportunity to share with you all today. To Dr. True Lear, my professor at Howard University School of Divinity, and also the founder of this movement, and to Dr. Denise Strothers, the National Director of Operations, as well as a sister and a dear friend. I bring greetings in the name of the one who delivered me from bondage, Jesus the Christ. And to all of you who logged on for this session, I say good morning and God bless. Special shout out to my adult children who are tuning in from their prospective homes and from their workspaces, to Sharana, to Sean and Vicky and Chris, to my family from Harlem and my friends. I see you all there. New Jersey, my bestie Nancy, my girl Denine, I love you all. To my grandma, who is the strongest person I know, thank you all. Thank you all for your support this morning. So let us get down to business, shall we? In the rooms of NA and AA, that's Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholic Anonymous, we say, let me qualify myself before we lead a meeting. So qualifying yourself means to help those in the rooms who are struggling with addiction to alcohol or drugs know that you too have been there in the trenches. So you are a subject matter expert on how to use as well as how to stay clean. So with this particular topic for advocating for youth in detention, I'm going to qualify myself. I am a formerly incarcerated woman who spent time in jail as a youth or young adult for possession of drugs with an intent to distribute across federal lines. Um, I almost did a life sentence. So that's pretty much my story. I was a young woman. I was on drugs and I struggled with that. I did something that was against all my morals, but I did it because that's what I needed to do at the time. And trust me, I almost lost everything from that particular situation. God was merciful and kind in that we were brought in a Black judge that came in off retirement during my case. I was facing a 10-year mandatory sentence. That was during the time when they were doing the war on drug initiatives, and where crack cocaine was, of course, a much bigger deal than cocaine, which, you know, targeted Black Americans, Black youth, who was the majority of the people who were using and selling crack cocaine at the time. And so I was facing an unjust sentence. It was my first offense. I had never been in trouble at all, but I was facing a 10-year mandatory sentence to life for that particular situation. They brought in a Black judge. I remember him very, very distinctly. He had white hair, white beard. He was like an angel. But I remember after going to trial and spending months trying to fight the case, losing the case. And of course, the mandatory sentence was the 10 years before even coming up for parole. Um, and I was crying, waiting for my sentence to be handed down. And I remember him saying to me, did I look like I ever, how did he say this? Did I ever look like I would hurt you? And I looked up, you know, tears in my eyes, and I said, no. And he went on to dismiss the mandatory sentence and gave me 3 years probation and time served for the year that I had spent in jail, going back and forth to court for the situation. Um, that changed my life. I'm not gonna cry, but that changed my life. Um, I had never had someone believe in me so much so that they would put their neck on the line. My lawyers, the court went up, as the church would say during that particular sentencing. The church went up, the court went up, because they had never seen a mandatory sentence be overturned in such a way without an appeal. So much so that they actually used that case in case studies where there are mandatory sentences imposed on people who have never had prior cases. So I just remember just being very grateful and ready to go home. But that was the changing point in my life. From that point on, I stopped using drugs. I surrendered my life to God. I've surrendered my addiction to the rooms. I started attending AA and NA. And I just looked up last night as I was, you know, going over this in my head and in my notes. And I realized that on November the 1st, which is just a couple of days, a Sunday, it will be 28 years since I used drugs or alcohol. So this actually happened about in 2 days. It'll be 28 years from the day when this all started and went down. So I am very grateful. I'm very thankful that God saw me through that particular situation. And so in that, just having the opportunity to be, for someone to advocate for me, a judge who did not know me, but had the same skin as me, believed that I could change, believed that could be a stain in history, and that if he gave me a chance, I would turn it around. And you know what? I took that chance and I tried my best to turn that around. And the first thing I needed to do was to get rid of the drugs. So I'm very grateful and very thankful for being clean. And I'm very grateful and thankful for all that was advocated for me. In that, I went on to do foster care, which I felt was my way of advocating for people that may have been thrown away, as we say. Had many children come through my home. I've ministered to many parents who struggled with addiction, struggled with prison, struggled with, the things that happen when you are in poverty, and abuse. And so that was my way of giving back, nurturing children, loving children. I had many children come through my home, which I love dearly. I still look for them to this day. Shout out to Kasi and Anthony. So I love them all. So that was my way of giving back. However, I did not know that at some point I was going to have to advocate for my own son, that he would be going through something that I had went through. I had struggled so hard and tried so hard to change my life and to raise my children differently because of what I had been through, that I did not see that coming. So at this point, my son is incarcerated in detention. He has about 6 more months and he'll be coming home. That's our prayer. So it just happened, just a few months, maybe a few months ago, when this happened, but it had been ongoing for a while. This has been a buildup of situations that got us to this point, and that's where I'm gonna try to take you back a little bit to where it started. So my son, Avon, I got him when he was 3 days old. He is my sister's son, but my sister is mentally ill and cannot, care for children. So I remember her calling me to the hospital and just asking if I would, if I would care for him. And I remember going to the hospital and just looking into his little beautiful face and, telling God that if God gave me a chance to bring this child home, I would support him, that I would love him, and that I would never leave him. And God gave me that chance. I was able to take him home. I was able to adopt him, and able to raise him. Beautiful child, he still is, the light of our lives. He's an entertainer. I mean, he's a rapper now, but at the time he was a dancer, and he just loved to entertain everyone. Everyone loved him. His personality was beautiful. um, and he progressed like most children. We didn't see it. We took our time trying to make sure, because we knew that, sorry, that's my grandson in the background learning virtually. Thank you for closing the door. But so he progressed normally, like most children, and we were taking precautions because we knew that my sister did suffer from mental illness. So we were always trying to make sure that everything was okay. We were having him diagnosed. We were taking him to get full diagnostics, just so we can catch anything and make sure that if anything was there, we could get him the support and resources. And so he was fine. We just noticed he did have a little bit of a temperament. But when he got to public school, when he got to like the kindergarten, first grade, we noticed that he started to have some social issues where he was not able to really connect and have friends. We try to attribute that at the time to the fact that we were a very, very tight knit family. We are a big family. There's like a gang of us. And so we really stick together. And so we felt like maybe because he was in that box, he didn't have the social skills. Come to find out, it was a little bit more to that. But at the time, that's what we thought. But he had a hard time connecting. And that led to some bullying. So he was bullied somewhere between the first grade almost to the fourth grade. Like the first year, we thought, listen, we've all been there, we've all had fights, we've all had, situations. But it became more violent, it became more aggressive. And so we had to start stepping in. We started going to the school, we started going to the school board. And we were getting nowhere. We were having meetings with the parent. of the child that was bullying our son, nothing was happening. So eventually, in the the fourth grade, we filed suit. I got an advocate who told me that that's what I needed to do. I needed to take him home, homeschool, and file a lawsuit against the school because they were not protecting our son. And so that's what I did. I took him home and I began to homeschool. I did not know anything about what I was doing. I'm so, kudos to all of those who have to virtually teach their children at this time, because it is not easy. That year was was stressful. But I knew I was doing the right thing because I wanted him to be safe. And so that's what I did. However, it was not sustainable because we were used to having a two-family income, and now we were down to one. So about a year in, we decided that we really needed to me to go back to work. And so we, put them back in the school systems. They, just separated the two, and my son and the young man. However, that was around the time when my son started carrying weapons. And so he was carrying knives to school. We were getting phone calls. I would have to leave work. I was working all the way in Queens and we have to come all the way back to Mount Vernon, to take him out of school because, he had a knife in his bag. Now he had never used, the knife. He had never used the weapons, but he said he felt safe. He said he felt safer carrying these weapons because of what, had happened to him. So we began to get, some medical diagnoses. We looked into getting some resources for him, and come to find out he was suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, because of the bullying, and the severity of it. And so that began a long, arduous process for him. As a result of him feeling anxiety, and feeling that type of stress all the time, he would have knives under the mattress. As I said, he never used them, never threatened. We didn't ever had any violent episodes in our home or even outside. However, he felt safer with these knives. He began to use drugs. He began to smoke marijuana. He was self-medicating because of what he was going through. At the time, he was not on medication. And we began to see, a change in his behavior, a change in his character. During that time, we were in the process of moving to DC because I had got accepted into Howard University, and we were going to move here for that. But my even though that was the main reason for me, the bigger picture for the family was to get Avon out of New York and to bring him here and hopefully get better resources, change of scenery, and get him back on track. That was a fiasco. We moved here, and we got settled in. My husband found a wonderful job. I settled into HUSD. I was able to stay home for a year and just try to get the boys settled. I also have another son who's 14 at this time, but at the time he was 12. And so we got them in school, great schools, but Avon began to progress, in his drug use. It got to the point where he was, and this is just marijuana. He's never, we had him tested many times, and he's only been smoking marijuana, but he smokes marijuana like somebody smokes crack. He was selling his PlayStation, he was selling his Xbox, he was, stealing credit cards from us. I mean, it was just really getting really out of hand. We had sought to put him in a drug treatment program, which was an outpatient, and he began doing that. But it wasn't really helping. He was around a lot of other youth who were doing the same thing, and they would leave the program and get high. And so, we continued to do that until one day we got a knock on the door from the police. And they told us they were there with a warrant and that they were there to do a raid on our house because they had suspicions that Avon had robbed a store. Robbed a store in a complex where we lived. We lived in a gated community, and it was a store in the community. And it was alleged that he had robbed the store. Well, they came in, they tore up everything in our home. They actually found clothing and, the weapon that was supposedly used for the situation. And of course, my son was convicted of burglary. And so we just it was a very we were devastated. My husband and I were devastated. We did not really know how to handle that situation, but of course we sprung into action to advocate, because the truth be told, we knew our son. He wasn't a bad kid, he was a hurt kid. He was a kid who had been through a lot, and he needed help, he needed resources, he did not need to be punished. He needed to be saved by getting the resources that he need, whether that be mental health, whether that be, rehabilitation, whatever the situation was. And so we did spring into action, and that's kind of where I'm coming from. I started to do a whole PowerPoint, and I started to bring in data, because this is what I do, at Howard University. I research. However, I thought it would be better to just give you my story, and just tell you exactly what happened and how I was able to find help for my son. So what I was able to do during that situation was to reach out to others. I had a community of people at Howard University who knew law, and they were able to give me great resources. But some of the things I learned on my own was the first thing I learned was to be present. In a situation like that with children, in court systems, you must be present. You must be there. Children who do not have parents or have guardians or advocators who are there for them, they wind up getting the worst sentences. They get no resources. They get treated unjustly, unfairly, and instead of getting what they need to change the behavior. I mean, Avon very much did what happened. What happened, it really happened, and that's the facts of the matter. However, there were underlying situations that caused him to do what he did, and that's what we needed to get to. So we needed to be present to make sure that they understood that we were there. We were active parents. If they had a court date, if they had a probation date, if they had a phone call, a Zoom call, a video call, I was on. And because I wanted to know what was going on, I wanted to be involved in every decision that was happening with my son, and I wanted them to know that I was present, that he was not alone, and that he had someone who loved him and that cared for him, and that we were not giving up on our son, that he would not be treated like any other child. He's going to be treated with respect and get the resources he needs. So that was one of the first things I learned during that particular situation, to be present for my son. The second one was to be proactive. Um, what I learned during that situation was, um, judges want to hear from parents. Judges want to hear from advocates. Judges want to hear from guardians. They don't know your child like you know your child, like an advocate may know their child, or the child that they're representing. They want to know what you think. So it's important to have documentation, whether it be about mental health situations, about things that happen. I was there letting them know what happened to Avon, with the bullying. I was there letting them know what, happened in his youth, what who his mother and her diagnosis was, so that they can get the best understanding of who this child was. They were not going to make a determination based on the fact that he went in the store and tried to get $40. $40, not the cash register, $40 to buy a sack. And that's what he told me personally. So I'm just saying that to say that you have to bring that to the table. You have to come with the information and the resources to say, this is who this child is. You have to be proactive. And also, you also have to come with resources. You want to look into different programs. They can send your child anywhere. They can send your child to, as we used to say in New York, West Jablip, you where you can't even see a Montana. How you gonna get to Montana? How you gonna visit your child? So I'm just saying that to say they will do things like that if you are not active and proactive in fighting for your child, coming up with resources, coming into the door when they ask you, well, what, Miss Woods, what do you think? Mr. Rush, what do you think? Having the resources and saying, this is what I think. I believe this particular program would be good for my son because this is what my son is suffering from. And this is what I think he may need. They actually listen because, as I said, they don't know your child. They only know what's on that paper, and everything on that paper looks horrible. Everything. If I was reading it personally, I would be like, oh my God, lock this kid up. But at the end of the day, there are underlying factors that are causing children to make, these life altering moves, and they need to be addressed so that they can get the help that they need so that they can get back into being a citizen, a law-abiding citizen in the world. And so that was something that I learned, be proactive, and also to be a support. Um, that's a life-changing, as I said, situation for any child to go through. And to have to go through it alone is unconscionable. And so be there, be at the visits, be on, take the phone call when sometimes it's inconvenient. Sometimes I'm at work and I'm just like, oh God, I can't take this call. But it may be a call where he just needs to hear my voice, or he needs to say, I miss you, I'm going through something. And I try to remember that I need to be a support, because children who are supported in situations like that don't go back as often as those who are not supported. Children who are not supported during going to detention are most likely able to go back, statistics say. And so being supportive, being there, going to the visits, and just letting them know that they're loved, giving them something to return to, letting them know that you look forward to their return, even though they did wrong, even though they caused the family harm, or discomfort. Just letting them know that they are loved and that they are, their homecoming is awaited is important. So being supportive is also very important. So, that's pretty much my situation. As I said, we have a few more months before his return. We are constantly, he has been evaluated. We were able to get him a medical diagnosis, and they found that he is suffering from, some mental illness. And that's something that we didn't catch, and it's probably something we would not have been able to catch because we couldn't, he's getting to the age now that we can't really force him to do certain things. And so now that we have him in the box, so to speak, we're able to get all of the resources, get all of the diagnoses so that he can get what he needs. He now takes medication. He's much calmer. And don't be afraid, to get them the medication. If it makes them feel better, and it makes them, he's suffering from depression. I didn't know that. I didn't know that he was depressed. And so this helps him a lot to feel more calmer, to not have anxiety, to not walk around carrying weapons. And so that, of course, is helpful. We know that any Black man walking around out there with a weapon is susceptible to being shot. And so that was always my fear, him walking around with a book bag with a, BB gun in the back, thinking he has a weapon, and somebody, the police pulling him over, and, that being that. So I'm just, all of that to be said is that we need to be supportive of anyone that, any youth that is in a situation like that. We need to be present for our youth, and we also need to be proactive So that's really my story, and I'm going to open up for any Q&A, any questions and answers for anyone who has a question for me. And that is that. Thank you for listening. Hopefully, it was helpful to anyone who may be going through that situation or know someone that is going through that situation. Okay.
We really, really appreciate you, Sharango, and your story. We first and foremost congratulate you for your 28 years of sobriety and coming through. We salute you for that. We know that it is not an easy process; that it takes a lot of internal work. And we are also praying for your family and your son as he transitions, as he goes through his journey. Right? We're praying with you guys, and we're here to support. As Sharango has said, presence is really, really important. It is really critical as we do the work with our children. I hold this conference, this workshop called Presence versus Presence, right?
Wow.
And that is a really, it is so important. It doesn't even matter if you don't know what to say, just being there to say, I know, it just speaks so much to our children. I want to, as our time is coming to a wrap, I want to be able to take any questions. So if you have questions that you want to leave in the chat box, thank you for everyone who's been giving shout outs and supporting. We appreciate you. But if you want to leave any questions, or if you want to have questions or statements for Sharango, please feel free to unmute yourself, and we'll be happy to take those questions.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I know Sharango, and I've met both her sons. They're both really wonderful kids. And so, how is your now 14-year-old son? He has witnessed, this whole thing and just the whole process. Has any of everything that's been going on affected him in any way?
Absolutely, Dr. Denise. A situation like that affects the entire family. It's hard to not, be affected by someone's absence who brings so much love and joy, even though he also brought a little struggle, But we've been working through that as a family. We have gotten our other son counseling, so he has definitely started a therapy session to just work through his own, feelings about it. Um, they are like night and day, so their personalities are very different. He's very quiet and calm and withdrawn, so that he doesn't talk a lot, and so he does internalize a lot of it and doesn't share. So we felt that getting him the therapy that he needs would be helpful to get him to open up and talk about what is going on. He does go and see his brother, as often as he wants. I don't force him to do that. Um, I, open that up for him, and when he wants to, he does, because he gets angry about it too. Like I said, we've been through a lot, and we've had to, struggle as a family because of that. So there's a little anger there too. And so that's something that he's working through as well, so that when they come home, when he comes home, we're healthier. They're also starting, and it's starting next week, as a matter of fact, family therapy. And now that they're starting the visits again, where we can actually go in and see instead of being virtual, we'll be going in and doing family therapy just to continue bringing that healing before he comes home, so everybody's on one accord and we don't upset the situation even more.
Right. Awesome.
We do have a question. And so the question is, besides God, how do you cope through all the trauma?
I definitely have a great support system, and I definitely utilize it. I have, and I gained a lot of support from my HUSD family, and that's been very helpful. You know, Miss Charlene, um, Sister Erica, Denise, Reverend Parks. You know, I've had plenty of people to talk to and to share the story with, to have them pray with me, pray for me, pray for my family, you know, and just kind of help me walk through this situation. So I found that I don't have to do it alone, and I don't. You know, there was a time, and that's why I felt like I needed to do this in narrative form, because there was a time when I was very ashamed, you know, thinking, what did I do wrong? I tried so hard after my situation 28 years ago to be so different that they would not even see the stain of this situation, and they did not. For the most part, they really don't know anything about my former life, you know. But um life happens, and there's nothing to be ashamed of, you know. And so that's, you know, we have to be open so that we can get that healing and get that support. And so I'm very grateful for all that, you know, are walking with me through this situation, but definitely being open to community during this time, for sure.
Yeah.
Hi, son. My son just tuned in.
You spoke about judges wanting to hear from parents and making sure that you have documentation. Would you be willing to share with us how that process kind of looks, how it looked, and whether or not, how can you make sure that your voice is heard as you're going through the court process, and making sure that you have, what types of documentation should we be having?
So, as I said, and as you stated too, presence is important. So being there. So the first thing you want to do is be up front and center in the courtroom, every single time. Your lawyer or your child's lawyer will always make note that you're there, and they do that for a reason. You know, I used to think every time, you know, did she have to do that every time? But she does that, or they do that, because they want the judge to know this child is not alone. And what happens is, during that case, or during that situation, the judge will actually turn to the parent or the advocate and ask for their opinion, or what they think should happen, or ask you what you feel. And that's your opportunity to open up about whatever the situation is, whatever you think could be helpful for your child. And so, like you said, the resources are, you know, if you feel like they need mental health, resources like my son did, I actually researched different mental health resources that took the insurance that we had and came with that resource, so that they didn't have to pick something for me or pick something for my son that maybe was not the best situation. I came prepared with what I believe would be a better situation, and what could take who would take our insurance as well. So just being there, being present, being upfront, so that they know you're there, and they have an obligation to ask, because they're still minors. And because they're minors, you know, they're still under a parent, even though they say, you know, they belong to the state of the court, but they also belong to a parent. And so they will turn and ask parents about what they believe should happen, or what insight you can bring into the situation. And that's your segue.
I have another question. So you are obviously a blessing to your son. What can be done for youth who may not have someone to advocate for them?
Can you restate the question? I'm sorry, Monica.
What can be done for the youth who might not be have someone to advocate for them?
Well, it's important for us to be advocates for youth that don't have parents. They actually have programs where there are advocates. As I said, when Avon was going through the situation with bullying, I actually reached out and got an advocate, because I didn't know how to advocate for him. I didn't know what I needed. I didn't know what to do. And so they have people who do that. They are paid people, and there's also volunteers who advocate on behalf of children. And so that's something that we can do, especially as a church, like Healing Communities is an advocate, for those who are transitioning from prison or detention and moving back into the community. Those are different ways you can partner with Healing Communities if you want to do that in your church setting and become an advocate, because you can go in on behalf. Like you said, some children don't have parents, and that is our opportunity to be there. As we say in the Bible, we're supposed to be there for the orphan. We're supposed to be there for the widow. We're supposed to be there for those who are marginalized and don't have. And so, thankfully, Avon has his parent, but there are many more that don't. And so that's where we can step up as the church and as the people to advocate on behalf of those who don't have that.
Yeah, that's good. And Healing Communities, we are here to support the community, right? So on all ends of the spectrum. So wherever you may fall in that, if you want training, more information about how you can help in process the adjudicatory process, or help in facilitating reconciliation, Healing Communities is here to help you understand what that looks like and how to be able to go about that in a wise and healthy manner. Um, does anyone else have any other questions?
Can I say hi to my grandma?
Hi, Grandma.
That's
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I have one last question with regards to the parents who might feel intimidated by the process or feel that they lack the essentials that they need to be able to be present. What encouragement, what motivation, what words do you have for them if they feel that they don't have what it takes to be present in various ways?
Well, I would say to them, reach out to your community. And if you don't have a community, you have to find a community, because you do need people. You do need people in your life. You can't do this alone. It can be very hard. It can be very stressful. It can be very traumatic. And sometimes you can, fall into a place where you feel like you can't do it. But that's when you need someone to uphold you, just like with Moses having Aaron on one side holding up his arms while he did the bidding on behalf of God. You need that help. You need those resources. And so I would say find a community of people. That's why I love the church. I know that people are moving away from the church, but the church is a community. And that's where you can find a lot of resources and help and support to get through these particular battles. Know that your child is somebody, in spite of what they may be going through, in spite of the challenges you're facing. Eventually, they will be an adult, and this could all change on a dime. I am a witness that it can change on a dime. I was headed on a really horrible trajectory, but look at God. Somebody believed in me, and somebody saw something that I did not even see, and so I am very grateful, for that. But we have to begin to see that even when they're acting out, even when they're doing things that you think, oh, this, the path that they're taking, they're going to be this or they're going to be that. Don't speak that. Don't speak that. Speak positive. It's hard. Trust me. Sometimes it's hard. Let's just say that it's hard, but we must read the word. We must pray, and stay connected to God. I've had to stay connected to God in a way that I have never stayed connected to God. And it's been different. It's a different type of connection. It's a trust that that's being built, because I can't always see the next step. So I would say get connected, to God, and your community, because you're definitely going to need that for sure. Your child is dependent on you.
Thank you for that.